I heard that we are in a week of delivery and deliverance. My name is Solarah. I'm actually here to do something a little bit different than what I normally do on this channel. And that is that I'm going to take you through some of the downloads I've been getting about what's happening energetically this week, especially with a lot of the Lilith energy that is occurring right now. I still will be back at the end of the week to do your new moon in Scorpio Tarotstrology Ascension Report. But for now, I want to focus on this message I've been getting about this being a week of delivery and deliverance, and to really talk a little bit about the energy, break it down in the chart in terms of tarot astrology, and tell you some of the insights I've been channeling too. If you're new in these parts, I am not a classical astrologer. I use astrological maps as tools to help me channel. I do use astrology, I use tarot, I use numerology, channeling the planets and the luminaries. I have created my own system that I call tarot astrology, where I utilize all of these various facets together when reading collective energy in astrological charts, as well as if you come to me for your own personal chart reading. So let's get into it. It is Tuesday, November the 18th. It is the day of Mars. And presently, the sun is in Scorpio at 26 degrees. As I open the chart for now, the moon is also in Scorpio. Moon, I think, just entered Scorpio today. And funnily enough, the moon is in Scorpio at 9 degrees. And why do I say funnily enough? Because we are dealing with heavy 9 energy right now in many ways, number 9 and number 10, as we wrap up this number 9 year, right? So 9 is a number astrologically that connects us to Sagittarius. So we're coming up on Sagittarius season. If you go by tropical Western astrology, we're coming up to Sagittarius season in a few days. And in terms of the tarot, the number 9 connects us to the Hermit card, which is Virgo energy. Okay, so just a quick note before I get into this. My system of reading these energies, it actually works across charts a lot of the time because I'm not only using the signs. So I just want to put that out there. I know some people are real sticklers for the kind of astrology they tune into, whether it's Western, Vedic, looking at the sky, specifically astronomically, which I do believe that's what we are going to be returning to, is really moving properly with how the sky is speaking to us on a day-to-day basis instead of astrological charts. But for now, we still are in this place of transition, and the collective energy is still focused on this method and mode of reading the way the planets are moving, and so therefore there is resonance there. Okay, so I heard it's a week of delivery. And so yesterday, a good friend of mine was calling Monday. It was a day of judgment. And it really did prove to be very much so in the ethers. There was a lot of judgment, or not even just in the ethers, in real time also. Now, today, what I feel like we are in presently on Tuesday, November the 18th, is we are in a death portal. We're in a big death portal that I do believe we will be in for the next 3 days until the moon becomes new in Scorpio. And the thing about anytime the moon is in a waning phase, it already is a mini death portal. But when you're dealing with the moon going into a waning phase in Scorpio, that doubles the death potential. And then when you deal with it going into a waning cycle in Scorpio in a number 9 year, at the point that we're at in ascension, it's like, it's not even double, it's like quadruple the power of death right now. And what is this death energy seeking to accomplish? I believe right now the death energy is seeking to clear out all areas within us, because Scorpio goes deep, right? Deep into the emotional body. All things within us that we are still aligning to or have allegiance to that keep us in the false matrix, keep us in old contracts, keep us in certain patterns, certain loops, certain timelines. That Scorpio energy wants to liberate you. It in and of itself is one of the major emblems in the zodiac wheel for being a womb energy. Divine Mother womb energy. And sorry about that. And that Divine Mother womb energy, as expressed in Scorpio, is very much about the void. That 0 point place where all things go to die and all things come forth to be birthed. Scorpio is a sign of the zodiac that deals with so many things, but one thing it really helps us to learn how to master, especially emotionally, is polarity. So we get our first real introduction into how to begin to discern and feel our way into polarity through Gemini. But it's through Scorpio where we get these deep, dark, intense lessons on our harmonics. Because at the end of the day, everything on this planet, everything in this material realm is expressed through the polarities being at a certain balance and level in accordance with who you are, what it is you're here to do. All of us, the different polarities we have in terms of how we deal with energy and how our energy systems work, it's going to be different, right? So this idea of Scorpio helping us to really master polarity. And what does that mean on a more practical level? Scorpio, I will often say, helps you to see where your deepest, darkest, most shameful aspects of self can come alive through the Scorpio axis and Scorpio transits. It really helps to take you there. But it also helps you to rise into your power, okay? Those aspects of self that sometimes feel so big that you don't even know how to begin to fathom that you could even touch that or be that. Scorpio wants you to have a full spectrum idea of who you are. And we will get into that more. I think I spoke about that a lot probably in the full moon in Taurus video a couple of weeks back. And we'll get into that more, the Scorpio energy with the new moon in Scorpio. But let's talk about very specifically Lilith today. And I've got some notes here if you see me looking down. So right now, the overarching theme with this very powerful Lilith energy that's occurring, it's all about delivery. It's all about emergence, birth, restoration, and most importantly, karmic balance, okay? Bringing back karmic balance and the true karmic ledger system. Okay, now why is this significant to this week? Lilith, I believe, entered into Scorpio, I want to say in March of this year, and she's exiting next month. So she would have been in Scorpio for about 9 months, okay? The gestational time of a human baby, right? So Lilith today is at the 26 degree mark of Scorpio. And this is important because the sun is at the 26 degree mark of Scorpio. And then after the new moon will be occurring on Thursday, the 20th of November. On Friday, November the 21st, Lilith will be conjuncting Mercury because Mercury is retrograding. And so presently today at the chart where I have it open, Mercury is at the 0 degree mark. Okay, so if any of you have been hanging with me for a minute, you'll know that my take on the 0 degree, that is a 0 point energy. That is literally a portal that opens you into an energy. So we are literally entering through Mercury into a portal that has to do very specifically with Sagittarian codes and coding. And it will be the second time that Mercury has made its way through this 0 degree in Sagittarius, because it is retrograding. So in other words, it's already gone forward through that and now it's going backwards, and it will go back again for a third time. In the same way, Mercury has already been in Scorpio and conjuncted Lilith at a certain point too. And so on Friday, Mercury will be conjuncting Lilith again for the second time. And when Mercury stations to go direct, it will conjunct Lilith for a third time. Okay, now let's get into what these conjunctions, these meetings between Lilith and some of these signs are really speaking on, because we've also got Venus will be heading into that direction too. Mars also, I missed that when Mars was in Lilith. I didn't get the opportunity to share with you guys about that. But let's get into what it means in terms of now. So the sun is an illuminating factor, right? It brings to light the things that we can't see, the things we don't want to see. And when you're dealing with the sun in Scorpio, it's very powerful for shining a light in the deepest corners and crevices and undertows of things that, you know, are unconscious, things that we've been hiding from ourselves, things we've been hiding from others, things that we don't want to confront. The sun in Scorpio is really powerful for helping us to see what it is that we normally would not be able to see. So then you have Lilith in Scorpio, and let's talk a little bit about what Lilith is representing. So a lot of what's been gestating in the dark is now pushing its way into the light. And it's pushing its way into the light through this void portal of the Divine Mother's womb. So these are all the scorpionic, and we're getting to Lilith, but very much the scorpionic energies of now, with it being a week of delivery. So in my opinion, Lilith is an original witness of imbalance and distortion by way of being wrongfully caged, cloned, and dismissed. So if any of you know the story of Lilith, or you say the folklore behind Lilith, then you might know that she is said to have been Adam's first wife. And Lilith was Adam's first wife, and not made from his rib, which I'm not sure, well, we won't get into the whole Eve made from the rib thing, but Lilith was not made from Adam's rib. They were equals. And the story goes that Lilith wanted to get her rocks off too, wanted to ride Adam. And Adam said to Lilith, no, I don't think so. You're not supposed to be on top of me. You're supposed to be beneath me. Okay? So Lilith said, fuck that. I'm not going to listen to what you have to say. I'm not going to let you control me. I'm not going to let you dismiss me. I'm not going to let you minimize my needs or try to take away my right to pleasure. I'm not doing that shit, Adam. So the story goes that Lilith bounced. Okay. Now, because we deal with a lot of like patriarchal, anti-divine mother, anti-divine feminine themes in a lot of the Abrahamic religious templates, it is said that she then became the mother of demons, which I'm not too sure is true. You take whatever resonates for you. But the point of the matter is who Lilith is and what she represents in a chart has to do with all of those places where you've been dismissed, disempowered, persecuted, made to feel small, stolen from, cheated, mimicked, cloned, because, you know, Eve came in to take her place, right? So we're dealing with mimicry, we're dealing with destiny swapping, we're even dealing to some extent with karmic reversals here when we're talking about, you know, what Lilith comes to show us about certain things within a chart. Okay, so with Lilith moving through Scorpio in that energy, she has been she has been blazing a trail. You like how I like merge trail and blaze, tracing? She's been, you heard it here first, she's been blazing a trail of exposure of these very things within our systems, but very importantly, first within ourselves, because the way that the collective energy comes out is by reflecting the work that we're doing internally. So Lilith has been moving through Scorpio, helping to balance the karmic ledger in truth. Now, if you know anything about the false matrix system, then you might know that it was founded upon karmic fuckery, destiny swapping, mimicry networks, and all this other shit. We were all tied to it, whether we knew it consciously or not. Still clearing some of that shit myself right now, because that stuff is so unconscious and it's part of the systemic way of existing on this planet up until now. So Lilith in Scorpio is about taking back our power. It's about taking back our story, taking back our voices, taking back our right to be powerful and to be empowered, our right to be seen and to speak in our truth, our right to have access to our pleasure, our right to not be controlled and handled and have our resources taken from us. Lilith, because we're dealing with Scorpio, Scorpio is a sign that deals with collective value and how we contract that value, how we grow that value together, which is why Scorpio is also over things like, marriage, death, contracts, taxes, financial institutions, because it's all about the collective value systems that are created through how we share. Okay, so think about that, because a false matrix was rooted upon a false value system that was designed to siphon beings to make a certain percentage of people of those that they wanted to put at the top very rich, while taking from everyone else and making the people they're stealing from think there's something wrong with them, feeding them, gaslighting them, and feeding them these narratives that this is what you have to do to get out of financial hardship and poverty, when really everything was designed to keep people looping and stuck so they could continue being siphoned and harvested. Now, what you should also know is that Scorpio is very much connected to the marketplace as it exists in the physical, but as above, so below. Okay, so when I say markets, I'm talking about like what we call the stock exchange. There's a stock exchange in the ethers and in the spirit that I like to refer to as a spiritual black market. There's also a spiritual gray market. There's different ones. They've been taken down recently, but they still were in existence. Shout out to Mia Foster. They still were in existence, right? So Lilith has been moving through Scorpio since March, bringing light and awareness to these structures, but first internally, and how we contract ourselves to being taken from, to being siphoned, to being harvested, to being minimized, to being, put in the dark. All of those things, Lilith has been really trying to get us to see, because these are the nitty-gritty, intricate contracts that keep us tied to the false matrix that we've been brainwashed to believe are like non-negotiables. And the more that we buy that story, the less we're actually able to connect with our intrinsic power and wealth. And this is what this death portal window is about. I really do feel in many ways, it really is about detaching from everything that tells you who you are except for source right now. Well, it should be that always, but that's the main energy of today I've really been feeling, because when you think about it, think about the birthing process. And when a child is coming through, they have no one helping them. They have no one helping them. It's just the mother and the baby together. And the mother has to do what she has to do for baby to come into the world, but the baby's also got a job to do too. And so our job right now, as we are being birthed into the truth of who we are, is to remember who we are. And very specifically, is to remember who we are as children of the Divine Mother, right? So Lilith, like many of the female deities that, we know of, in my opinion and how I've seen it, these female energies are all parts of the Divine Mother that have been fragmented and binded for the purpose of harvesting and keeping her from being able to rise. So you see, energy, it always stays true. It never, it can't break away from what it's expressing. So in other words, the same way that was enacted against us, the same way we were fragmented and binded in order to be siphoned and harvested from, that began first with the Divine Mother, okay? And by pulling her apart and getting beings who didn't have the actual source encrypted right to engage in certain rituals, what happened was a continual harvesting of the Divine Mother that was being boosted through people who weren't supposed to really be taking the power from these beings, presenting offerings, etc., and presenting offerings so that they can have something that that being has or encompasses. And in doing that, if you're not, sanctioned to do that, and most in the false matrix weren't, then what you're actually doing is harvesting the Divine Mother and harvesting self. Because true source-aligned beings, you can come to the true expression of the deity and leave an offering for them in the same way you would bring something nice for a friend. But that's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about trades. We're talking about markets. We're talking about the spiritual black market, and how a lot of what goes on with rituals is those exchanges. What they're getting that stuff through the spiritual black market a lot of the time. So all of that is coming to a close. There's been a lot of exposure around that, a lot of crashing down around that. But more importantly, on an individual level right now, we're being called deep into the void, deep into the womb, deep into the 0 point, to remember what we forgot, because we've forgotten so much. And it was by design. It was by design that we would forget who we are, that we would start doing things and living and being in ways that go against our very divine nature and against our Divine Mother. And they call it tradition and social etiquette, all manner of things, religion, spirituality. And Lilith in Scorpio is showing us where all of this fuck shit has been happening astrally on a global level. This is why there's so much happening right now around the exposure of beings who are using divine feminine energy for their come up, right? Siphoning it from the divine feminine, siphoning it from their followers. It's all coming out right now, and it will continue. This is just beginning, right? So Lilith is an original witness of imbalance and distortion by way of wrongfully being caged, cloned, and dismissed. She represents the part of the psyche and soul that remembers what happened when power was taken, truth was silenced, and true consent was denied. So the key word there is she remembers. And in many ways, not only is she helping us to remember on a personal level, but she's bringing that remembrance back into the containers and structures, oftentimes the invisible containers and structures that are responsible for our material reality. So a lot of what was going on, and not a lot of it, all of the false matrix was rooted on invisible structures, containers that were designed to steal from you, to siphon, to energy harvest, and to redirect your true resources, your truth, to other beings who, for the most part, shouldn't even be on the planet. Okay, so that's how the false matrix was set up. And in order to do that, they had to gaslight the fuck out of you. And in order to gaslight the fuck out of you, they had to bind up, silence, shadow ban the truth seekers and the truth tellers and those that came to speak and to wake people up. And Lilith says, oh, no, no, no. No more of that. It's time for the truth to rise. It's time for real voices to be heard, beginning with your true voice, because so many of us don't even know what our true voice is because we've been so magnanimously, fucked and programmed against our very, energy signature and blueprint. And Lilith is here to be like, wake up, remember who you are. Let me tell you about who you are. And let me tell you why you don't know who you are. And let me expose all of those who've been colluding to keep you not knowing who you are. But then it's up to you to choose to accept this and to rise. And this is what this death portal is about. Are we able, like this Scorpio energy is here to do, are we able to see how far we've fallen and still rise up and feel worthy of the true mantle that we're actually here to carry? Can we do that? Lilith refuses. She refuses to orbit systems that dishonor her. And the perfect example of this is how Lilith is actually, in a chart, she's a gravitational point. She's not like, the other asteroids, whatever, the other placements in a chart. She's a gravitational point, meaning that she is the point in your chart where the moon actually was farthest from the earth. So that tells you a lot again, because where the moon is farthest from the earth, that speaks again about the void. It speaks about the void, right? But it also speaks about what is the moon, or what was the moon used for in the false matrix, because the moon isn't bad. It's just they were using it for nefarious purposes. The moon acts as, it pulls in emotions, and it also is connected to portals that help to clear emotions. Now, this is important because we are emotional beings and we create emotionally. We birth through the waters, the emotional body, those are the waters. And when you are unable to clear yourself emotionally, then your waters become stagnant and you produce death and stagnancy that keeps you, therefore, in loops. So Lilith, the moon also, is where they captured a lot of our trauma for the purpose of repurposing that trauma and refeeding it into the grids and into the atmosphere so that we would stay at a certain level frequentially and not raise the collective frequency. Because once a collective frequency starts to raise, people start remembering and waking up, which is exactly why they binded beings like Lilith, beings that represent this archetype, were consistently binded, shadow banned, silenced, scapegoated, gaslit the fuck out of, abused, contained, etc. And Lilith comes to expose all of the ways we're still complicit with those energies within ourselves, where we're still containing ourselves and keeping ourselves small and afraid of our power, afraid of our voice, afraid to be seen, afraid to be who we actually came here to be because of all the fuck shit. But Lilith says, come on, baby, let me show you how to rise. And not for nothing, as we move into the third decan of Scorpio, we're also dealing with what I like to call like Phoenix code activations. So the way I see the energy every year is when we enter into the third decan of Scorpio and the first decan of Sagittarius, that's where Phoenix codes begin to become important. Okay, so the Phoenix codes are the codes that we are able to embody as we rise from the void. As we go into the void and we're stripped and we're refined by fire, right? We're able to rise from it like the phoenix and embody a truer version of ourselves. That's what, that phoenix aspect of Scorpio is about. It's about that rebirth. Now, The Phoenix codes, they also connect you to dragon energy as well as seraphim energy, as far as I can see. Okay, so we'll get into that a little bit more. So Lilith also reveals where we carry deep memories of betrayal, persecution, power, truth suppression, lunar harvesting, shadow banning, and karmic fuckery. Not just lunar harvesting. She kept a record of all of that stuff. And her placement in your chart begins to show you the very important themes where that has played out for you continually, and where in this lifetime it's important for you to take your power back from those specific themes in order to rise, especially into your Phoenix codes, your wealth codes, your visibility, your ability to properly shield and protect because you're in your frequency and your truth. So Lilith also shows where we hold the potential for radical reclamation of our voice, the womb, wealth, and true reunion with the Divine Mother and our source-encoded provision, timelines, and sovereignty. She is not a wounded feminine, but a record keeper of sins that must not be repeated, but also taken account for. So in this way, Lilith comes to help us remember so that we learn our lessons and everything comes back into proper karmic order in that way. And I'm not saying she's over all of this. She's just one aspect that assists in this. And so what it feels like is happening very potently right now. And again, it happens every year this time. But because of where we are in ascension, and we are at that death point of the false matrix and birthing of the Divine Mother and the New Earth timelines, it's all the more potent. But every year when we get into Scorpio season, it is about auditing. It's about auditing in terms of what your system has, what your system holds, what your system can hold in order for you to move forward and birth your higher timelines. And this auditing process is based upon the receipt of your solar codes through the 8-8 portal. Now, this is important because right now, those beings who have gotten through Virgo season, the season of going within and remembering who you are so you're able to actually accept those codes, right? There has to be a shift in frequency to receive the codes. Virgo helps you to make that shift through how you think and how you begin to move. That's Virgo. Libra comes to begin to put things into balance in accordance with the choices you've made through Virgo. And then Scorpio comes to begin to audit your system to make it ready for those codes to be brought to maturation through the December solstice, so they can materialize into a whole new set of timelines, experiences, realities that are in alignment with who you actually are. Okay, so yes. So today we're dealing with Lilith conjuncting the sun at 26 degrees Scorpio. And in doing so, there's a voiding gate, a gate of the void that has opened. This is what I'm talking about with the death portal that's opened. It already is a death portal, like I said, because we're in the waning moon phase, moving to, the new moon in Scorpio. But this Lilith conjuncting the sun is kind of helping you to find your way through this portal in a way that maybe you wouldn't normally be able to. She's buttressing this to make sure that those who are truly wanting to put the false matrix to death are able to do so. Okay, so she's opening this gate. It's a gate of emotional karmic reckoning. Okay, so it's really about clearing out your emotional body so that you're able to properly birth. Okay, so you can't birth from stagnancy. You can't birth from a field that is still overrun by trauma and the loops that have kept you running through that. You have to do the work to recognize, to clear, to cleanse, etc. Those are the things we all have been taken to task on. So some of the key themes I have written here. So there's a correction of karmic ledgers through the deep water memory of Scorpio. So the false matrix was known for its karmic fuckery. It was known for its karmic transference schemes, whereby it took beings who were in serious karmic debt, and some of them really should not have even been here, right? Based upon the level of debt they held and therefore what their true frequency is. Either way, many of them made it here. The majority of the false matrix was run by these beings. And so they were running a karmic exchange Ponzi scheme. Okay, so in order to exchange or engage in these karmic transferences, they needed to have beings who had the codes that allowed for them to cloak themselves so that they wouldn't have the karmic returns that they really deserved. Because the system still continues to dish out karmic returns and do all of that stuff, you know, especially through Saturn. But the system started reading wrongly. It couldn't read the true karmic ledgers because these beings were cloaking in other people's codes, stealing them from them, and then dumping their shit codes into these other people's systems. So these beings are constantly paying for debts that aren't even their own and don't realize why, because the false matrix has gaslit them thoroughly and told them, oh, you're supposed to struggle and grind and hustle to get anywhere. And if you fall back down, get back up. All of this shit is all the ways that they trauma looped us into believing that we were here to struggle and to suffer and to consistently never get out of that looping structure. When really what it was a lot of us were constantly in a loop because we were holders of other people's densities. And so when all of this happens, there's a whole harvesting calendar based upon how the true cosmological systems work to keep things in balance on Earth. They created a whole energy harvesting calendar that supported what it was they were doing. And so by the time you got to Scorpio season, most of the time nobody was holding their 8/8 codes because nobody knew what 8/8 codes were and what they were for, but they sure as hell knew in their elite societies and shit. They taught those people how to do those things very specifically. That's what made them secret, right? So by the time you get to the auditing phase of your energy body to see what timelines you are here to fit into, you've been robbed. You've been robbed, and the karmic ledger has been rebalanced to make it look and seem as if something that should be yours belongs to someone else. And you have all of this shit that now you have to carry for another year because it's been dumped into your system. So what we're dealing with also with Lilith conjuncting the sun in Scorpio is the ability to properly begin to see the lunar harvesting records. They can be seen for what they are: the players, the networks, the contracts, the true karmic responsibilities and debts that have been hidden. Those things can be highlighted also for the mere fact that when you're moving through the third decan of Scorpio, that is the decan that is ruled by the moon in Scorpio, okay? So another thing that is happening through this powerful Lilith energy this week of delivery, a lot of false altars are collapsing. Now, altars with an A and altars with an E, because a lot of us were programmed to take on alter egos or false personas. We all were, MK Ultra'd. to a certain degree. And within that, there are alter egos we are charged with taking on. And you might say, oh, I didn't take on the alter ego. Yes, the fuck you did. We all did, because we were told that in order to have something, we had to do this. We had to be this way. And the things that they told us to do and to be in the false matrix always went against our energy signature. Because remember, they don't want you tuning into your energy signatures. They do everything they can to keep you following a script and a program that takes you as far away from your truth as possible. And you're a creator being, so you know how to create these personas that then begin to tag you into mimicking networks and various entities that continue to keep you in your place playing that specific part. How many of you know that for as long as you were playing your part in the false matrix, you were okay? But the minute you started to buck against the script, whether that script was coming through your family system, the schooling system, the social system, the work, doesn't matter. The minute you started playing away from the script is the minute that the fuck shit began, right? So anyway, those are the alters with an E. The false alters with an A are also collapsing. This is where beings were invoked in distortion. And so we're speaking about Lilith, right? And Lilith was often invoked in distortion. And she was chained to do this. And not only was she chained, but there were a lot of mimic versions of her that began to circulate. Because the more that beings did this to the original, the more that there were replicas that could be created to therefore increase the binding energy. I hope that makes sense. So unsanctioned rituals using her power and invoking her. And these were often how the Divine Mother stayed binded for others to harvest her and also her children. Okay, because the Divine Mother connects us to our resources, our, what I call your endowment, what is supposed to be in your toroidal field, Taurus energy. The Divine Mother connects you to your ability to have that. And if she's being harvested and binded, then everything is being redirected and rerouted, and it's being taken from you too, as a child of the Divine Mother. So other themes: registry, corrections, and updates. So silenced truths are being entered back into the field, into those invisible systems and structures that ultimately are what our material reality is built upon. So invisibility and cloaking for thievery and transference can no longer hide in false registries and ledgers. So the false matrix love to mirror source law. So where source law, divine law, has proper structures, containers, methods, in order to make sure that things run in accordance with the truth and with the rightful source encoded and source encrypted laws that are needed to keep all things in harmony, all things harmonic resonance. The false matrix likes to mirror that. So as such, it had false registries. It had false ledgers. It had false courts. I'm talking also about this. This is etheric I'm talking about. Okay? And so within those false ledgers, false registries, false court systems, which is a big thing right now too, there was a lot of cloaking and pretense and fake laws that were being passed in order for thieves to continue to transfer, to be in this karmic transference network. So this cloaking, this fakery, these false contracts, everything that held these things together, they can no longer hide in these. The false registries and ledgers don't even exist for the most part anymore. Again, shout out to Mia Foster of the Clearing Circle, who's really doing a lot of this work, you know, behind the scenes. I'll put her information below also. So another thing, womb sovereignty being restored. Womb sovereignty. And when I'm talking about the womb, I'm talking about your ability to create on your own terms in accordance with source law. You are creator beings. You didn't come here to emulate machines or to struggle or to suffer or to have to slave for the inheritance you were already bestowed and given. So in some ways, Lilith is midwifing Gaia through this clearing. She's serving as witness and as a doula. So let's get into the Tarotstrology of what's happening with Lilith in Scorpio at 26 degrees, conjuncting the sun in Scorpio at 26 degrees. So we've got the sun, we've got the death, tower, and judgment card, Scorpio energy. And then, which is interesting because in the tarot, it goes death, tower, judgment, 13, 15, 21, the 13th, 15th, and 21st card. But what it feels like is happening right now is like we've had more judgment energies yesterday. We're moving into this death portal, and through this new moon in Scorpio, it's going to feel more like tower moments. And tower moments aren't necessarily always bad. There's sudden shifts, sudden illumination. If my tracking is fucked up, I apologize, but I don't stop recording for fuck shit. Okay. So it's moving real slow, as I see it at least. Okay, so the 26 degree mark of Scorpio is also the 7 of Cups. So with the 7 of Cups, you're dealing with chariot energy, right? You're dealing with, no, wait, let me get this right because now I'm distracted by the stupid tracking. With Scorpio at 26 degrees, you're dealing with the 7 of Cups, okay? With Scorpio at 26 degrees in terms of major arcana, you are dealing with, again, the chariot because of the 7. And then you're dealing with a Taurus degree. So 26 is a Taurus degree. So that would be the Hierophant and the 7 of Pentacles. And then if you break down 26 numerologically, it breaks down into an 8. And when you put the 8 on the side, you're dealing with how energy flows, right? You're dealing again with polarities and how energy flows from one thing into another. So this is also proper karmic flow being restored. Proper karmic flow being restored. And then true 8/8 code holders, the truth of their energy system, it can now be entered into the ledger, whereas a lot of the time before it couldn't because these codes are being stolen, transferred to other beings. Those that were not harvested or redirected through the spiritual black markets of this season are able to come into maturation with those who have done the work to hold on to their codes. So the new moon that's occurring on Thursday is bringing a new and updated ledger, or this is what I'm channeling. The new moon is bringing a new and updated ledger and a birthing of timelines that fit this update, okay? So let's go over this quickly. The 3rd decan of Scorpio is where Phoenix codes begin to be activated. And this reignites both dragon and seraphim lineages, DNA, etc. All things connected to dragons and seraphims there tends to be a high season of recognition around the 3rd decan of Scorpio and the 1st decan of Sagittarius. 3rd decan of Scorpio is where these codes tend to be activated and known. The 1st decan of Sagittarius is where they begin to be grounded in, and the codes can be realized. So moving through these transits or these periods of time, it may bring and birth certain archival scrolls and records, as well as the keepers of these codes that carried, one second, let me read my writing. It might bring to life and birth certain archival scrolls and records that keepers of these codes have carried but not been able to anchor. So the codes that you have are also connected to how you work in the invisible planes and how that affects the material. So there are some beings who, and this isn't my area of expertise per se, but there are some people who carry certain scrolls and carry certain records, right? And so for as long as those codes were being taken and harvested and other beings were cloaking themselves, they were masking and pretending to be in a level of authority that caused other people to trust them and to listen to them, or whatever those codes were for, while the true beings who are supposed to have those codes for the purpose of their position of authority on the earth that demanded the things that the thieves were stealing and taking from others. In doing so, their true authority and what it is they came here to do was not able to be activated, which also caused the systems, the source encoded systems, they were like completely amok. It allowed for the karmic transference, fake ledgers, fake registries. It allowed those to stay alive because the very beings that were designed to enforce certain laws and to keep certain things alive and in check were not able to do that without their codes. And furthermore, they weren't able to do that because they were gaslit and didn't even remember that's what they did or was part of their function. So many of these beings who carry these codes that are ready now to anchor, that will activate certain things again, reactivate. Those codes were stolen through harvesting, through their containment, through karmic transference schemes, through erasure and silencing of their truth and their lived experiences, through distorting their image, just scrambling up their communication. So even when they did speak, beings didn't get them or they didn't like them, they would cast evil eye on them, all manner of fuckery. This is all energetics and spell work for the purpose of keeping these beings in places where their codes could be stolen and they couldn't reactivate into their power. So how is this going to kind of look on Earth from what it is I can see? So on Earth, it means that timelines are collapsing, and sometimes right now they'll be collapsing at record speed. Now, the beauty of this, it's not just so you can jump into a higher timeline, it's actually so you can also close the loop. So what you might be noticing right now is certain patterns and behaviors, especially in Scorpio season. Scorpio wants you to see this so badly. Certain patterns, behaviors, loops that you keep on going through, you have the opportunity, many opportunities to break that loop in record time. So once upon a time where you may have taken years to see how something was playing out, now you can literally see it in days, in hours, in minutes. And as you correct yourself, as you go through the loop, that's how you collapse it, right? So on Earth, also, deferred and unlawfully transferred karmic debts will be being forced into repayment. And how that's going to look is that many of the true voices of source, the true keepers of law, whether you're visible or you're doing things behind the scene, you're going to be able to rise back into your position and do what it is you came here to do, because you will have your codes back, the resources you need to be who you are. And this is also where we begin to talk about what we refer to as the great wealth exchange, right? Which we'll get into also. So mimic gods, those replicas of certain deities that oftentimes, especially with the Divine Mother and the female deities, were fragments of her. The mimic gods, stolen archetypes, and the false grid guardians are being exposed and removed. Those harvesting divine feminine codes are getting exposed, and true code keepers will start to rise and to speak up more. Truth and source-coded transmissions are going to start winning the day, because what is also happening is that there's a grand shift in the collective consciousness. As the frequency changes on the planet, people are not wanting the bullshit anymore. They're not wanting the pretense. They're not wanting the imitation and the emulation. They're not wanting the, the processed food. They want the real thing, and the ones who have been cloaking can no longer cloak very well, because who they actually are will begin to be seen a lot more. You're already seeing it, I'm sure. You're already seeing it in the world of entertainment, especially. Yeah, we'll leave it at that. So the beings who are emulating, imitating, stealing, and cloaking will be becoming more obvious. So there's a grand shift in the collective consciousness around value and the systems that uphold and decide collective worth and value. This is how you spend your time. This is where you live. These are the things that you've been told you can or can't have, etc. You already are seeing it everywhere. People are up in arms about the things that once upon a time nobody thought about. Nobody thought about the fact that most people earning minimum wage can't afford regular rent. They were just shamed and ridiculed and told to work harder. And now people are waking up and seeing, wait a hot fucking minute, the math ain't mathing, right? And that's a direct result of the frequency shifts, as well as the collective consciousness in terms of shifting into valuing self and valuing human life more. I know we see a lot of fuck shit on the news all the time, but there is a very real collective shift that is happening where beings are reflecting more. And that would be why. I'm not saying all of them, and I'm not saying all of them that reflect are awake or hope or choosing to rise and do the work, but nevertheless, it's still the case. There's also financial overhaul. Scorpio, like I said, deals with the financial institutions. There will continue to be grand financial overhauls, especially through the eclipse window next year through to the new moon in Taurus and the full moon in Scorpio. Okay. So this is the foundation. What we're stepping into now is the foundation for the true transfer of wealth to begin. And the true transfer of wealth, again, is based upon coding and frequency. Okay, so Lilith has come to collect. She's come to collect. She's a divine mother emissary who has come to collect. And this is what we're feeling very strongly right now through this birthing portal, and what we will continue to feel as she makes her way through the closing degrees of Scorpio and things become even more obvious in terms of the themes that she deals with. We do have her conjuncting Mercury on this Friday, November 21st. And then she'll conjunct Mercury again, I don't know, maybe in a week or two. Whenever Mercury comes out of retrograde, I don't remember at this point, but when Mercury comes back out of retrograde and starts to move through Scorpio, the last decan of Scorpio, Mercury will meet Lilith again. And the Mercury-Lilith meeting is all about the shifts in mindset, the shifts in communication based upon her activations, right? Yes, I think that's all I want to get into. If you would like, I've got a special going right now. If you are interested in getting your own Lilith placement in your chart, having a Tarotstrology one-to-one, very specifically just your Lilith placement, I did just open that up today on my Ko-Fi. I will put the information for that in the description box below. I will be back in a few days for the new moon in Scorpio. I probably will be showing up on this channel a little bit more and putting Solarah Speaks on ice just for a little while I figure out some of my own next steps creatively. But yes, I thank you so much for your time, your love, your support, and everything you're doing to do the work of rising into your power and taking back the earth from all of these energy harvesting and karmic fuckery and all of these crazy regimes. I thank you, and I will see you again soon. Be well.